Um, as we have not much time left today, I think we should start straight away onto what we have to learn today. I will very briefly tell you about how we are going to go about different days, and probably you must have got the schedule as well. As I have said, my name is Nripendra P. Rana, but you can call me Rana. Yeah, that's my preferred name. I'm Associate Professor of Information System and Deputy Head of Department of Business at the School of Management at Swansea University in the UK. This is the very brief outline for what we are going to do over the period of next 5 days. And our today's discussion, deliberation, is based on the fundamentals of outsourcing and arguments around in and against of IT outsourcing. Day 2 is about offshore outsourcing, where we will talk more in detail about market developments, risks, and risk mitigating strategies. Day 3, we are going to take up a specific type of outsourcing which is called business process outsourcing, or we also call it as BPO. And we will see the various aspects of business process outsourcing. Day 4 will be dedicated to governance of information technology outsourcing, where we also try and understand more in detail about corporate governance and IT governance and the distinction difference between these two types, and the various frameworks and theoretical foundations to understand the IT outsourcing. And at the very last day, we are going to explore more about identifying and evaluating some of the key challenges of IT outsourcing in context of India. In today's lecture, interactions, I would rather prefer to say, we will take two different aspects of outsourcing. First, we will get to know about the fundamentals of outsourcing under outsourcing typology, and then we will also discuss about the arguments in favor and against of IT outsourcing, followed by our 1.5 hour of formal discussion on it. We are going to have the tutorial, or you can say group discussion, around the case study which I will circulate later on. And case study will be about implementing an outsourcing decision. So we will have more interactive sort of session based on the case that you are going to go through, possibly in groups, about what we have learned in theory now in the first hour or so. So before we go in further into the details of our IT outsourcing, the different types, the typology, classifications and all, I just want to know from you that how many of you are students, practitioners. So first of all, how many of you are students here? Can you please? Most of you are students. Anyone who is practitioner and have little bit exposure about outsourcing or working in a company which outsources, or service providers for that matter? No one. Okay. So as I assume that most of you are students, do you have in your curriculum IT outsourcing or something related to outsourcing or not? Yeah, it's there. So if it is there, and if you have read a part, if you have gone through about it, then it is much easier to not only to tell you about this, because I find sometimes that one-way communication is rather boring, and probably I have come over here spending 32 hours from England. So I'm jet lagged. I'm feeling sleepy whole day today, and I don't want you to get jet lagged because of the lecture. So try to, be in the awake state, and try to be with me. And I always welcome and try to trigger two-way communication. So it is very interesting then to interact and have deliberations rather than just me taking on and on the subject. So you might find the slide a bit cluttered, but it is not about what is there in the slide. We are going to discuss more in details, although we don't have much time to discuss, as these 2 hours have effectively been shortened into 1 hour session. So probably we can take it through 1 hour and 15 minutes for this session, and then we can quickly go through the case study and discuss more on case study. Can we put like full screen this one? Yeah, that's great. So the very first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about outsourcing, or for that matter IT outsourcing, is what is outsourcing? And I'm sure you must be aware of what the term outsourcing means, right? So it is a phrase used to describe the practice of seeking resources or subcontracting outside of an organizational structure for all or part of an IT function. Because we are talking mainly about IT outsourcing, and that's why we are bringing information technology phrase into account. Otherwise, outsourcing is not necessarily restricted only to IT, because when this term was first coined, it was largely used for manufacturing, right? And even that concept of outsourcing is still going on, because you might have seen that the giants, big companies in the US, they outsource their entire manufacturing unit to the developing country like China. And that's why you see even the MacBook or any other products of Apple, they are still manufactured in China. And if you get that product, you will find it written made in China. But basically the technology is from American company, but because of various reasons they outsource the entire manufacturing unit to China, and that's why this is. So what we try to say by outsourcing is that we are trying to subcontract our tasks, right, our functions, processes outside the premises of my company, and that is called outsourcing, right? So, and if that is applicable for information technology, that's called information technology outsourcing. And then an organization would use IT outsourcing for functions ranging from infrastructure to software development to maintenance and support. And nowadays, when we talk about IT outsourcing, it is not limited to any particular aspect which is not outsourced. You can outsource anything and everything that you wish to, and that all depends on your internal credibility, your internal skill sets, your internal resources, whether you are able to support the work, the processes that you run, the work you do, the tasks you perform. If you are not able to do that, you simply think of outsource your work to some external entity, some other organization. For example, an enterprise might outsource its IT management because it's cheaper to contract a third party to do so, then it would be to build its own in-house IT management team. And this is probably one of the reasons why most of the companies, even today, would like to go for outsourcing, and they do go for outsourcing. The key reason is to save cost, and that's the major thing, because for a company, as a company, if you want to get more benefited out of what you do, the major aspect for this is to gain benefit. And one of the ways by which you can retain that benefit is by outsourcing your work, because that lets you get your work done, your job, your task done in the less cost than what you could have done in-house. So, and the same is true for IT management as well. So as a company, you might outsource all your data storage needs because it doesn't want to buy and maintain its own data storage devices. Most large organizations only outsource a portion of a given IT function. Again, this is a good point of debate, that as a company, whether you should outsource only partially or you should outsource everything that you are running as a process. You are functioning in your company. That is again a matter of debate, and we will see. But this is why the companies outsource. In addition to saving money, which we have seen that this is one of the key aspects why companies, no matter whatever companies you think, even the giant or the medium size companies or the smaller companies, whatever companies you think of, they all tend to outsource. And the major reason for outsourcing is basically to save money. But it is not only restricted to saving money. So the question is, what are the other aspects which companies would like to think when they outsource? And definitely there are many reasons for that. So we are going to go in details, understanding about why companies of today want to outsource. So the companies could be any company, right? As you are, car manufacturers, you are creating cakes, right? Or you are an insurance company. Whether you are a product-based company or you are a service-oriented company, you have to think about what kind of profit you are making out of it. Whether you can make more profit when you outsource your work. So, apart from saving money, what could be the other potential reasons why company outsource? So some of them are here, and we are going to discuss them more in details, but this is just to give you a kind of brief information about why companies would like to outsource. So reducing and controlling costs, and that's what the key aspect, one of the key aspects of the company is improving company focus, which we will discuss very shortly. Gaining access to world-class capabilities. That's the other very important reasons why companies of today want to outsource. Freeing internal resources for other purposes. Streamlining or increasing efficiency for time-consuming functions. And sharing risk with the partner company. These are some of the key reasons why companies of today want to outsource their business, particularly IT related. So today, before even going to those reasons why company would like to go for outsourcing, why do they go for outsourcing, let us first try and understand some of the basic fundamental concepts behind IT outsourcing. So the first thing we are going to see today is typology, or the classifications of IT outsourcing, important issues relevant to outsourcing decision making. And although we are going to go and see them in more details, particularly the topics like business process outsourcing, offshore outsourcing, but we will just skim through and try to understand the basic concepts. So As far as outsourcing is concerned and its related classifications, it could be introduced by looking at the nature of the relationships involved and the services to be delivered. So what is the nature of relationship involved between the company who is going to outsource and the service provider? So, in the course of next 5 days, we are going to very repeatedly use some key terminologies, and you should be very much clear about what are those. First thing, when we talk about outsourcing, there are two parties involved, at least two parties. Also, they could be more in numbers, but at least two parties. One is the outsourcing company, which outsources its functions, its processes, its services, whatever. The other one is the one which is providing the service back to the outsourcing company. So the first company we can also call this as client, and the second provider is the service provider, right? Or IT service provider, because we are largely essentially talking about IT services. So, and then there could be third party involved as well in this process. So that's why I'm saying that there could be more than two stakeholders involved in this outsourcing process. So the second one is the nature of relationships involved depends on which IT services are outsourced and to how many providers. Again, you see, whenever we talk about providers, this is not necessary that the client has outsourced its IT services only to a single provider. It could be multiple providers as well. So when we talk about providers, they could be multiple providers, and the client would prefer to outsource its services to those multiple providers based on their strengths, because not all providers can provide all the services required by the client. So there could be multiple providers. So how many providers are there? What different services you have provided to them? And also, which IT services are outsourced, right? There could be, again, there are indifferent number of IT services that you can, outsource. It could be desktop support, it could be the back-end service, it could be the front-end service, it could be the network application support, anything that you can think of, application development, software development, any sorts of support that you need or application support that you need that could be outsourced. And definitely, if you are outsourcing all these different kinds of functions, tasks, and processes, you may not find one specific service provider which can provide you all the services, and that's why you need more service providers. So distinctions may then be made between selective and total outsourcing and between single and multiple outsourcing. So these are the branches coming out of outsourcing itself, where we try and get to know more in detail about what is selective or total, or what is single and multiple outsourcing. Likewise, depending on the services needed, companies may opt for information systems outsourcing or business processes outsourcing. Again, when we talk about outsourcing, there are different branches and types of outsourcing. Initially, when we talk only about outsourcing, it could be only limited to information systems or information technology outsourcing. But when we move further and try and drill down more into outsourcing, we get to know that it is not only we talking about information systems outsourcing or information technology outsourcing. It could be more than that level, and that we can try and understand it through business process outsourcing, which in short also called as BPO. And this is a very buzz word today in the outsourcing industry. BPOs, where most of the people are getting employment, even they are not very expert in a particular specific area. So we will talk more in detail about BPOs. So now when we talk about the different types, classifications of IT outsourcing, there are two things that come in our mind in terms of the broader classifications, the first one is single outsourcing, what it is and how it is different to multiple outsourcing. In single outsourcing, the recipient hires one service provider to supply it with the information services needed, whereas at the multiple outsourcing level, you can have as a client multiple service providers. So this is very simple distinction between single and multiple outsourcing. Single outsourcing is further divided into multiple integrated IT outsourcing partnerships and joint IT outsourcing partnerships. So we are again branching single outsourcing into two different types. But it's important for us to understand if it is single outsourcing and where we are saying that there is one service provider when we talk about single outsourcing for a recipient, then what are these two terms and what do they mean? If one of the client suppliers serve as a system integrator to and the other service providers subcontract to it, then rather than contracting directly to the client, the arrangement is called as multiple integrated IT outsourcing partnership. So as we are saying that these are the two different branches, two different classifications, typology for single outsourcing, do you get to know what is this type? As multiple integrated IT outsourcing partnership. I'm a client, I have outsourced my business to the service provider. Now I have outsourced my business only to one service provider, so the link between a client and the service provider is one-to-one. But that service provider is a multifarious service provider. Means even if that service provider doesn't have enough capability to do all the work in-house, what it does, it further subcontracts the work to the other stakeholders, other service providers, because it has got network with the other service providers. And then it gets all the work done by those networked service providers, and then it reports that solution to the client. So that is also a type of single outsourcing, but it further subcontracted to the other service providers. And there are certain examples. If you go and try and dig more into it, you will see that Axo, Novell, Shell, DSMs are such companies which are involved in such single outsourcing, where it subcontracts the work to the other service providers. Now, then what is the joint IT outsourcing partnership? This is the partnership where the recipient and its principal contractor set up a joint venture which provides the system integration and the recipient needs, but also offers its services to the other clients as well. So these are the two different types working on the two different points. Like when we talk about single outsourcing, the first one where we call this as multiple integrated IT outsourcing partnership, the branches were coming out from the service provider to the various other subcontractors, which were the service providers themselves. But in this one, what is happening? In joint IT outsourcing partnerships, the client is one, the contractor means the service provider is also one. So again, this is one-to-one relationship, but this time around, client has multiple clients. So when it gets the service from a single subcontractor or the service provider, when it gets the solution for the task it has outsourced, it further actually spreads that task to the other clients. Right? So in that way, this is called joint IT outsourcing partnerships. Examples of such relationships are those between General Motors and EDS and between Philips and Atos Origin. So if you have more interest to know, how these partnerships work, how the contract is basically joined by multiple companies and how it is further subcontracted to the other recipients or to the service providers. You can go and go through in details. Another distinction is made between companies outsourcing all information services and those who outsource only a selection. That is also the factor on which we can make differentiation between the companies, thinking about outsourcing only the selective IT services, only selective processes, functions, tasks, or works, or they want to outsource everything that they have, right? So the practice of total outsourcing is much criticized in business literature because it renders the client's dependence on its service provider. The difficulty can be partially removed by outsourcing to several providers and managing their services as a portfolio. Now, if you are a company, what would you prefer for? Like, let's say if it is a small and medium enterprise, not think about the large organizations or the large company at all. You have two different options. One is for, to go for selective outsourcing and another for the total outsourcing. What factors will come in your mind when you try and outsource? Definitely cost is one factor, but what do you, think more about when you want to go for selective or total? Here, the research, it is talking about research and saying that the research, the business literature, the research indicates that you shouldn't go for the total outsourcing. You should only try and go for the selective outsourcing. And what could be the potential reasons for that? Okay, yes, complete dependence, which you don't want to happen, right? Because the control will go to service provider and it will not be in your hand because it will operate on your behalf. And so you don't want to do. So in order to minimize that, or to certain extent, if you don't want to let it happen, what do you do? And what should you do then? You can go for total outsourcing, provided you are not outsourcing it to a single service provider. You are, again, when we talk about single service provider, it should not be the other two branches of single outsource service provider, right? So you are the point of contact, definitely, because you are the recipient. But again, rather than the other service providers subcontracting to various other network service provider, the point of control from you to the other service provider should be all different. So that even if one or two or three service providers are not able to meet your expectations, you can still get the sum of those services which you have outsourced. You can get the expected outcome out of those services, right? But if it is in the hand of a single service provider, you never know if the services are not being outsourced in a manner in which you have expected, or the initial memorandum of understanding was signed, then you don't have any other option than to change the service provider, because there is no guarantee that the other services you can get on time. So in that way, you can minimize to a certain extent that issue by outsourcing your different aspects of IT services to the different service providers. So there are certain examples of it. Outsourcing may be restricted to the company's information systems, or it may encompass entire business processes. In the first case, the recipient sets targets for the performance of the information services only, because you are only involved in outsourcing the selective services to the service provider. Companies outsourcing there is set up long-term contracts transferring responsibility or partial responsibility for delivering the necessary information services to their provider. This provider may take over some or all of the IT department's property, and staff. So that is the other threat, right? When you have outsourced everything, that means at the point when you have decided or made decision to outsource everything, until that point it was managed within the organization, in the company. Means you definitely had some capable workforce to do your work. Like when you try and outsource your functionalities, your processes, functions, works, and tasks, then what do? You start transferring everything, dispatching things to the service provider's end, right? And in that case, what happens? You are basically transferring all your company's assets, valuable human resource, talent pool, everything to the service provider, right? So in fact, you are surrendering yourself to the service provider. Now service provider has a very strong control over everything, because service provider knows your know-how, knows the strengths and weaknesses of your workforce, and how to get the work efficiently done with whatever you had. So transfer of knowledge, know-how, workforce, and on the top of everything, all your functions, IT services, software development, application development services, all these are going to go at the service provider's end. Examples of such relationships are data center outsourcing, network operations outsourcing, desktop outsourcing, applications outsourcing services, help desk outsourcing, and disaster recovery. So these are the different types of outsourcing that you can make based on whether you want to be selective or you want to be outsourcing everything. Business process outsourcing now, just let us try and understand it very briefly, although we are going to talk about business process outsourcing more in detail other day in some lecture, day 2 or day 3. But when we talk about IT services outsourcing, and when we talk about business process outsourcing, what is the difference and how they can be differentiated to each other? Any idea about business process outsourcing and IT services outsourcing? Any distinction that you can think of between these? The broader level, not quite in depth. Firstly, in order to understand what is business process outsourcing and how it is different to IT outsourcing, we need to understand the meaning of business process itself. So what do you think? What is meant by business process? Can you give, if you're not, if you think that you're not properly able to define it, can you give one example where you can say that this is a business process? You all are management students, come on, you know business processes, yeah?
We can say a manufacturing company outsourcing the part of a product from other third-party manufacturers, suppliers.
Yeah, so what is business process there?
So they are not manufacturing that part, other than that they are directly outsourcing from the third-party
supplier, you are saying, right? So yeah, that in that case, they are outsourcing the parts or the components, you are saying, from the supplier. Yeah, that's correct. Supplier is involved in here. The supplier, client, if we see the supply chain overall, it's supplier, client, and then the customer, and of course the other stakeholders, including the outsourcing and service providers, are also there as a part of supply chain. You are saying, whatever you are saying is absolutely correct, but what I try to find out is what is business process in itself, in that entire, sequence of events or the phenomenon that you have described. Yes.
How an farmer can earn money. This is the business process.
What is that? Can you repeat it? Can you say again?
How a farm generates its revenue.
Yeah. How the firm generates its revenue is a business process. How many of you think this could be considered as a business process? Sit down. No need to stand up. Not make it more formal. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. Planned. Yes.
Like a company wants to outsource its financial calculations to other companies.
Okay.
Price Waterhouse Cooper, it's a company which takes all financial turnover, it checks the turnover of a company.
Yes.
That would be a business.
Absolutely. So anything that, come on, you all are management students, you all know what the business processes are. Now let me count and you will see, you must be, if you are a management student, you must be either specialized in something, specializing something, or, intend to specialize in the future if you're a first year student. So what are the different areas where you want to specialize in? Marketing, sales, finance and accounting, operations, I don't know, all different. All these are business processes, isn't it? So as a company, you have to think broadly about outsourcing business processes and not only necessarily IT services. Definitely, because you are a company and you are a company, let's say you are a car manufacturer. IT services is not one of your core businesses, and that's why you want to outsource, because that's not your strength. That is not what you are known for. So why to keep those functions being operated in your company premises? Let us outsource it and try and focus more onto what my core area is, so that I can excel more in that area in the future. I can compete with the leaders in that area, those companies, and for that you need to outsource. But sometimes it is not necessarily only the IT services or IT service management that you outsource, but you outsource, rather than only the specific specialized IT services, you outsource the entire marketing and sales. As you have said, the entire bookkeeping. You can outsource the entire accounting services, right? So these all are called business processes. And so the outsourcing of not only necessarily the specific IT services, you are outsourcing everything related. So it does not necessarily involve only the information technology. It involves everything which surrounds information technology, and then you outsource all of them. For example, if you are outsourcing payroll, yes, employees' salary related stuff, if you find it really difficult to manage inside, because a lot of people leaving the organization, they come at different point in time, and every now and then the process is getting so complicated that it is not only difficult to manage the IT application around it smoothly, but also the entire non-IT related functions as well, because it's not one of your cup of tea. So you decide that, okay, let me, just to get rid of the entire processing of this employee pay package, let me outsource it. You have outsourced it. So your payroll is outsourced. Yeah. Similarly, customer processing, or customer, the customer order system. Yeah. You don't want to deal in with, because After the advent and proliferation of internet and e-commerce in 1995, now everything is online. Customers are not only reaching to you through telephones and through the traditional mechanisms, they are all coming through the different e-commerce, m-commerce platforms. It's very difficult for you to sometimes manage them. Let's outsource it. So that's the business process, right? So whatever you think it as a unit in the business, which not only linked with IT services or information technology applications, software development, but all the business processes around it, they are all business processes. And you outsource it not only as an IT service, but as an entire business process. Or marketing, sales, you outsource everything. Business process outsourcing means that the activities and knowledge needed to perform a department's task, process, or functions are all provided by external service provider. That's what the outsourcing means. So that's what you do. The service provider also has responsibility for non-IT related activities. So when you sign a contract as a company with the service provider, the contract is signed not only for the IT related services, but the service provider is responsible for providing you services for all non-IT related services which are involved with it. So that's why this is the entire business process. It could be customer care. You see all these different types, right? So functions may be administrative, billing, shareholder services, pension plan, customer care. You outsource customer care, and that's why you get to know about the call centers. What is that? It's all about customer services, customer care, BPOs. Yeah, you go to the city centers of Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon, anywhere in India. It's all proliferating. All BPOs are proliferating. Why? Because the Western companies from the Western world, developed world, they need people to provide support for the customers. And there, the workforce is so expensive that the company thinks, a particular company thinks that, okay, if I let this go to any developing country where the labor is relatively cheaper, then I will get probably the same service, although again there are a lot of advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons in it, but at least you can get the same work done, getting done in much cheaper rate than what you get done in the Western countries, and that's why they outsource and they call it as call centers, BPOs. Two categories of BPOs are often divided into back office outsourcing and front office outsourcing. So again, when we talk about BPOs, they are back office and front office. Then you must be wondering, what is the difference again between back office and front office outsourcing? Essentially, the difference between back office and the front office BPOs is like back office, which deals with the internal functioning of the company, is called back office, like desktop support, help desk, whatever it is, like network application support. All these are called back office outsourcing. But when you outsource your front office, that is, customer oriented services, yeah, outward looking services, which is looking outward of the company's premises. So it could be the technology support, the marketing, the customer care, and that's why we talk all about call centers when we talk about BPOs. So here I have outlined some of the back office support and back office outsourcing. Data entry, data management, surveys done for the companies, payment processing, quality assurance, accounting support. All these are parts of back office outsourcing. And when we talk about quality outsourcing, you must have heard of ISOs, all different versions. So how the companies get ISOs, that is done through the recognized organizations which provide ISO for the quality assurance. But that is internal to the company, just for making a company to a level where it is recognized as an international company. So all these are internal, but they can all be outsourced. Likewise, the front office means forward-looking, outside the organization. These outsourcing types are like telemarketing. This is one of the traditional ways of supporting customer support, service support, technical support, help desk, appointment scheduling. Sometimes you see, the agencies, outside agencies provide appointments to the companies. It is outsourced. Company has a link and contract with the outside agencies, and those agencies provide the company the required skill, capability, workforce, talent pool. Inbound and outbound sales. Again, when you were talking about the entire supply chain process, and the entire supply chain process is not complete until we start from the inbound logistics, right, and go toward the outbound logistics. That's what the value chain process is, isn't it? Porter's value chain process. It starts with the inbound one, it goes to the outbound, and whether we talk about the supplier or the customers, they both are part of the external aspects of looking out of the organization. Market research. This is one of the most important aspects for the companies to think where they are going, where they are lacking, how they can go up and benchmark themselves to the companies which are best performing companies. So market research. Yes.
So how can the inbound sales is a part of front office? Isn't it a part of back office?
No, that's why this is a very nice question. Back office means handling within office. When you are saying inbound logistics, you're not necessarily getting the let's say the raw materials from within the company. You can get from the external suppliers, isn't it? So that could be outside the organization, right? Isn't it? Dell computers. Have you seen the case studies of Dell computers? How the different components, it's not manufactured within Dell company. It is taken from the various other companies. They are assembled together, and then the computer systems, laptop, all these are manufactured. So they are outside the premises of the organization, isn't it? And that's why they are called, yes.
How is the service back office outsourcing?
How is the service?
Yeah. Surveys.
Okay, surveys. You mean market risk? Oh. All right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. This, there are two aspects of looking at what do you do with surveys. Definitely, when you do surveys, it is for enhancing the company's internal strength. Although you do the surveys outside the company premises, but the objective of conducting the survey is to strengthen the company's performance, its development, and that's from that point of view, this could be considered as a back office one, because
Sir, then market research could also be in the back.
Yeah, this is how you if you go further deep into market research and surveys, then try to understand what aspects you want to take into consideration for the back office or the front office. You can then make distinction and can put that particular branch of that survey or market research further into back office or the front office, isn't it? So this is not necessarily, as you have said, it could be if the surveys are used externally by some organization to compare how you as a company performed with respect to the other benchmark top performing companies, then that could well be a part of front office. Like, this is all about in what aspect, in what context you see that particular process taking place. Yeah. Any other questions?
Don't you think that outsourcing the customer service operations quite risky task because they are directly dealing with the customers.
Yes.
That can be a lost company.
Yeah, very correct. That's why when we talk about outsourcing, we also talk about the pros and cons of outsourcing, right? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages possibly of outsourcing? And whatever you have said is one of the disadvantages, because it is directly related not only to the company's stake and prestige, but also related to the customer security and privacy, right? So this is one of the disadvantages, and we are going to see as cons of IT outsourcing here. How much time we are left with? Half an hour more, I think, right? And after that, we have group discussion tutorial. Now, when we talk about outsourcing, again, there are three different types broadly. And one of them, the first one, we are going to again take this up in more details one day, which is called offshore outsourcing. The other two are nearshore outsourcing and onshore outsourcing. Yeah. So what are these? The offshore outsourcing is the outsourcing when you outsource your services, your business processes, always beyond the boundary of your country. Then only it is called offshore. Okay. So you don't, because you have flexibility, you can outsource. Because if I'm in India, I can outsource my services in any other Indian company itself. Then this won't be considered as offshore. Offshore means when American, British, East, Western, European companies are outsourcing their businesses in India or in other developing country like Bangladesh, China, largely because to save cost and making more profits. That's called offshore. Okay. Nearshore is also a kind of offshore outsourcing, but how it is different to offshore is like nearshore is also you have to go beyond the boundary of your country, but you have in nearshore you can go to your neighboring country. Like if I'm an Indian company and if I want to outsource, I will see what other countries. Probably rather than outsourcing it to another Indian company, I would prefer to outsource it to a company in Bangladesh so that the labor is still cheaper than what it is in India. So, or Myanmar, I don't know, anywhere where we can possibly outsource. And onshore outsourcing is basically, we also call it as outsourcing, where you outsource it in your own country. So, like if I'm in India and I'm outsourcing it to the other company in India, it's also called onshore outsourcing. Yeah, so when you talk about what IT outsourcing or outsourcing in general, we need to understand what are the advantages associated with outsourcing, and these are some of the advantages of outsourcing. The first advantage is decreasing the total cost of ownership of the IT services. Do you agree with this? Total cost, and that's what the main objective of the company is outsourcing. Shortening time to market for new services. We'll come to it later in more detail. Increasing flexibility of IT services. Achieving innovation in IT services. Facilitating the IT consequences of mergers and disentanglements. Okay. Achieving a technology shift. Realizing a strategic focus on central competencies. Rendering the IT services costs variable. Improving the company's financial ratios. And solving the problem of not being able to recruit qualified IT staff. Yeah, these are some of, there could be, possibly when you go through in details, you can also find a number of other reasons for which the companies want to outsource. But these are some of the key and most occurring advantages, yeah, as far as literature indicates. This is very simple. The first one is very simple one, because I want to save cost, right? I do it. And why the service providers are more than willing to take that outsourcing work? Because they, at the other hand, also making profits, right? How they make profit? By economies of a scale, right? So they do very similar kind of job that you give, they take it from probably many other clients. And that's how they are able to do it with the same workforce in the same amount of time or a little bit more, and they serve the clients in more efficient way, in the timely manner, in the more cost-effective manner. And so this leads to cost saving not only for the client but also resulting in the benefits to the service provider. So that's what it is saying. But as a consequence of development which made IT an integral part of companies' business processes, the focus of total cost ownership thinking has shifted from information services to that's what we are saying, because nowadays it is not only the information services or information technology outsourcing, but it has shifted to the business process outsourcing, because all the related work that you probably do around some of the business processes are not one of your core strengths. So rather only to outsource the IT services, you intend to outsource the entire process, right? And try and use that workforce somewhere else where your strength is, right? So that's the key there. What is shortening time to market for new IT services? Many companies operate in markets whose considerable dynamics have been increased by the globalization process. IT departments must therefore be able to react quickly, which means having substantial resources available. This makes it difficult for them to be cost efficient. So it is saying that when you outsource, you also want to save time. You don't want to take the product, the solution for the services or the product that you have outsourced and take all the burdens of selling it out to the market, right? You want to save some time as well, and you want that your innovative services or the product that you have obtained as a matter of getting it outsourced to be quickly disseminated to the market, right? And because of the advantage that your service providers have, because many other clients know the service providers and for what they are reputable, they trust them, and if the services are basically disseminated from the service provider's end rather than the client's end, then it will go more quickly, fastly, right? And it will also take away the burden from the client in order to disseminate the services to the market. So it saves a lot of your time, and also it gets you advantage in terms of more popularity of the service providers for which they are known for. They are responsible for disseminating. So disseminating the services to the clients. Like when you get the service, you're not necessarily using it in-house. You further sell the services to the customers. And if it is sold out on your brand name from the service provider, it not only saves your times and cost, but also it enhances your brand popularity, because you have got it from the reputed service provider for which is very well known in providing services in that area. So if the tag name of Google, Amazon, Oracle, all these companies are linked to, and people know that they are the best service providers, and if they are involved into the development, creation of business processes, people will have more trust in it. Customers will have more trust in it. And so it will also shorten the time, because it takes away your internal resources, time and everything, and it's not guaranteed that it will go in the same pace. Another possibility is provided by ERP software and using a standard instead of customized software speeds up the process significantly. Do you know what is ERP nowadays? This is also very commonly used. Yeah, but what exactly it is? Okay. And what is its most attractive feature of this software? Why you should go for ERP? Why not any other silos like independent, fragmented software applications? Time saving, yes.
Because it collects from each and every department.
Yes, absolutely. Integrated, you mean, right? Okay. Time saving is there. It's integrated in nature. Any other trend that you want to add?
It's customized to a particular.
It is customized, yeah, depending on if as a recipient, if I want the customized one, I can get. Otherwise, I can take the standard application and try and make myself in a way that I adopt to whatever is the inbuilt software application, right? There are two ways of doing it. If you want to go for customize, you need to pay more, but then the application, the integrated application that you get will work exactly as you want, isn't it? Or if you go and buy the integrated inbuilt application and you don't want to spend any further on it, you probably need to change some of your business processes to fit exactly into that software, right? So that could be done, and this could also help you shortening time to market, because most of the companies, only the big giants can actually go for thinking about customization, because they have the capability to invest more into those IT services which they buy. But small and medium-sized enterprises, they would go for the inbuilt one. So all these things will definitely, as you have said, time saving, and that's why it is used for, because then you're not working fragmented way for each and every department and then manually try and integrate them. So it integrates everything together. What is meant by increasing flexibility of IT services? IT departments must be able to react to changes in the services requested, both with respect to quantity of these services and their nature. On the basis of IT strategy, a company may decide to change from one information platform to the other. Such flexibility is needed to maintain their competitive positions. So what happens, and these are, when we say that these are the arguments in favor of outsourcing, means when I say that increasing flexibility of IT services, this is one of the reasons why I want to go for IT outsourcing. Because let's say today I'm a company which is working on certain e-commerce platform. Tomorrow, because of the advancements in the customer's expectations, I need to upgrade, enhance, improve my platform to go to m-commerce. What would I do if I don't have the right workforce, right skills, right capabilities to improve myself, to take all the application services, network applications, everything just to satisfy the customer's expectations to provide them services through m-commerce? What do I need to do? Probably I need to hire more skilled people in order to upgrade. If I don't want to do that, because this is not only a time-consuming process, but also it needs a huge investment. So why to take that bother? Why not to outsource it? This is the service providers now, they're bothering how they are going to manage it, because they have already signed the contract of providing anything that is needed to change based on customers' expectation, and they have the right capability, they have the right set of hardware, network, all the facilities available. They will probably let you go to the next level very quickly than probably that could have been done in-house by yourself. And this is a very small case given to try and make a sense of why that is needed. We supply our products to several Fuji companies. They also decide that specifications, and they and these differ widely. Supplying many different products requires flexibility on our part. To meet a changing demand, we outsource parts of our processes, and we don't feel bad about it at all. It isn't just about IT services that are procured externally. Distribution and other processes are also involved too. Working with a large number of contractors keeps us flexible and enable us to meet the client's demands. So basically, if the clients want something else, you can quickly switch to the next level, next platform in order to satisfy their demand. Achieving innovation in IT services. If you need any innovation, again, it is time consuming. It needs more, a skilled workforce, talent pool and everything, and for that you need, again, more investment, more money. So if you want any innovation, and if the service providers are well known for making those changes, those innovations, integrate them into your system, why not? Why not to outsource? Facilitating the IT consequences of mergers and disentanglements. Now you must be knowing about the companies merging, acquisition, disentanglements, right? And if all these phenomena take place, it will make you try and think the different ways how you can implement, apply the different types of IT services to meet the new changes that have taken place in the organization, right? You are an organization. Tomorrow you think of just merging another organization into you. Now everything that you worked probably alone would change by merging the other organization, isn't it? Or if you have acquired a new unit, the way you work will change, because the new unit also needs to be incorporated in your integrated software system, IT services, right? ERP sort of thing. You cannot keep that particular unit out of the entire functioning of the organization. And in that way, you need to not only think flexibly, but you need to think very quickly in order to accommodate their needs as well. And the same thing might happen with disentanglement. Do you know what is that? Disentanglement? Yeah, opposite. So, if you want to keep a particular, portion of the organization out of, your functioning, then again you need to change the existing system, the way you work. So for all that, outsourcing is very important, because all of a sudden changes you may not be able to cope up with, because you don't know probably how to do this. You don't have enough resources in terms of workforce, as also in terms of the hardware and software to put them in place in order to satisfy the expectations of running the business smoothly, and that's where you need outsourcing. Achieving a technology shift. For years, IT departments have adapted their company's information platforms, a sensible thing to do fast, but not always cost effective. When it finally comes to transforming such platforms, this involves drastic operations and substantial effort. Change is made even more difficult by the fact that during the transition, two separate platforms must be kept working. So when you are shifting, that's like when I told you that now you are shifting from e-commerce to m-commerce. By the time during the transition period, you want both to work independently, unless you are very sure that you have shifted all your customers to m-commerce. Still some may not go at all to m-commerce, so you try and keep both these platforms up and running, right? And then you decide at certain point in time that you want a complete shift from one platform to the other, and then if you make sure that the upgraded, improved platform is working absolutely as per your expectation, and then you try and move to that. Yeah. So technology shift, again outsourcing, because again a lot of changes you need to do. So that's what it is. Realizing a strategic focus on central competencies. So that's how you can focus on your core business, right? If you think that something which is not related to your core business, you simply outsource it, because that is not your cup of tea. You don't want to compete in that area. You want to compete in your sector, in your industry, and that is your core business. Anything else that is there and that needs huge investment, more terms of support, workforce, skills, hardware, software resources, you just want to outsource. So this is one case. When you go through it, you will get to know why you need to focus on your central competencies, and anything else you should outsource. Rendering the IT services costs variable. If a company's IT department is made responsible for information services delivery, the company will have to invest in information technology. But since the IT department has only that one company as its client, there is no way it can spread the investment costs over several clients when the information services demand fluctuates. So if you are only an IT department within a company and you have to make all the changes, then the external resources, the software, hardware, whatever you need to implement in order to function with the requirement of the organization, it is going to come to only one client, because that's the only organization. It is unlike the service providers. If you are a service provider, you have the flexibility. You can divide the cost onto different many organizations from where you are getting the outsourcing work. But when you are only an IT department of an organization, there is no way you can split that investment burden to the multiple clients. This is the only organization which can support you. So in such situation, outsourcing is absolutely essential. A good example of making cost variable is provided by application service providers. These offer multiple users access to centrally managed application which their clients can use via the internet and on the basis of subscription. Utility-based computing. Have you heard of utility-based computing application service providers? Like, it is not based on fixed cost, but it is based on variable costing. Like, you have to pay only that what you use, not anything else. And even ASP is no more that popular, but the relatively newer concept is called cloud computing. I'm sure you would have heard of, right? So as an organization, if you want to pay only for whatever you are using, and even if you are outsourcing, for maintaining the variable cost, and when you think that you are not paying for what you have not used, cloud computing is one of the best approaches to do. So how does it work, cloud computing? This is again an outsourcing. If you want your data to be stored somewhere securely, you can contact a service provider who is an expert in cloud computing area, isn't it? Yeah, you want to say something? Anyone wants to say something about cloud computing? Like, yes.
Excellent. So one thing is there that in cloud computing,
Yes.
cloud computing,
Yeah.
the company providing the services of cloud computing, is there a problem of security or confidentiality or classified data of the company are shared with the service provider? So is there a problem, sir?
Yes, this is a very good question. Now, when you say that I want my data storage services to be securely stored somewhere, and why do you want to go for cloud computing? Because you don't have enough capability to store that much of data, thousands of terabytes of data. You need to have one after other, probably 100 such servers in order to store it. And for that, you need to buy all of them. It is, again, for cost-saving purposes, if you just pay what you use for the data, you can contact the cloud cloud technology provider and transmit all your data into their server. Again, this is a good question, and generally companies bank only upon those service providers which are very well known, right? And they are very popular in providing such service. And in that case, you don't need to worry about, as a client, need to worry about the security and confidentiality of the data, because at the time when you sign contract with the company who is going to take care of your data and its confidentiality and security, you sign that if there is any breach in data, the company will be held completely 100% responsible for the data breach. And they have multiple layers of security and the dedicated servers where you can, and it is not only one set of server, but the backup servers are also located at the different geographical locations. So let's say because of flood or fire, if the servers are all gone or all burnt in the particular location, then your services are not going to be hampered because of that, because the backup information and data is again saved at some other geographical location. So in that way, and the other beauty of having such services is that you have to pay only what you use. If you are using 1,000 terabytes of data, if you are engaging only 10 service providers servers, then you have to pay only for that, not for anything else. So yes, the answer for your question is yes, they are very secure and they are actually protected by multiple layers of security and security protocols technically. So they cannot be breached. Yes.
As you have mentioned that it is purely secured. What about data archive? The data which we upload in cloud-based memories and other software, it is archived in a period of time. So what about that? That is like something we just upload it. We feel that it is private, but it is archived in somewhere, some other location. That could be the data.
Yeah, very good. This is also a very good question. Actually, when we go in detail about the data storage and the cloud technology, you will get to know that there are two different types of cloud technology. One is called private cloud technology. Another one is public cloud technology. I don't know whether you have heard of these two terms or not. So what happens for the companies for which the data is the key, means if the data is lost, the company is completely dysfunctional, right? So those companies don't let their most sensitive data out of their premises, right? They try and build some cloud technology platform within the company where they try and keep those most sensitive data. And the public cloud technology platforms where they do where they contract and outsource their public technology, means the public data. And these two, public and private cloud technology, are integrated in a fashion that they function as if they are stored in the same server. So, but again, when we talk about private concept of private cloud technology, it is not possible for most of the companies, because having that resource in place is so expensive that small and medium companies cannot afford it. So this is only for the big companies. The other companies, yes, as you said about the archival of data, yes, it takes little time, because you have to create and generate the mirror image of data that you have stored at some point to the other point. So it takes little time in order not only to store but to synchronize that data, so that even if one particular location is dismantled, you can start fetching the data from the other, right? So, but this process is so quick that it doesn't take much time, and still it can be archived and mostly secure as well, right? But for most sensitive data, companies don't let such data go outside of their premises anyway. And financial ratios, like financial ratios, company also outsource to increase the financial ratios, like what is the overall turnover of the company, right? You have to show that you are making good benefit. Not how much benefit you are making on each employee, so benefit per employee, and market to book value ratio. So you have to show a good value for each one of these, and for that you can do it or can obtain or attain it only when you have outsourced. So improving the company's financial ratios, you also need to outsource. Solving the problem of not being able to recruit qualified, because you know how expensive the qualified IT employees are. Even in India, just not to talk about in developed world, they are very, very expensive. And that's the reason why Indian IT qualified professionals are very much demanded in the Western countries like UK, like in the UK and the US. Because they are in very much demand, because they do probably much more better work than their local people, local staff, in almost 1/5 of the wages that they pay to the locals, right? So if the US software engineer gets $15,000 a month, Indian IT professional gets only $3,000 to $4,000. And we remain very happy in that, because we feel that at least we are much better than those people who are working in India. So, that is why companies from the Western world want to outsource it, because they know that even those people who are there in India, they are much more qualified, and they can work for me in much lesser wages than what I can manage to pay them here. And that's why outsourcing is a very viable option for such companies. In current American presidential election, one of the agendas of Donald Trump was to cut down on all the IT outsourcing, which is taking place from America to India, China, Vietnam, Myanmar. Why? Because there are about 7.5 million people in America who are unemployed. And they actually outsource about 14 million outsourcing jobs to the other countries. If they cut down all those jobs, probably all Americans are going to get jobs. And that's how one of the agendas that clicked, and he won the presidential election. But unfortunately, even after a few months, he hasn't worked more on it, because he is also thinking that at least all his work is getting done through all these developing countries in much lesser rate, and he's a businessman at the end. So he is president. He's not going to be president again. He knows that. So let's work the way he is working. Do we have some time, or we have to take break? Because I think now we are not so much interested. I'm feeling jet lagged, but I have made you feel jet lagged after 1.5 hour session. So what I will give you, homework, and if you find any queries from these 5, there are not many points here. Increased dependence on suppliers. These are the arguments. You raised few questions, right? But no matter whatever you talk about, if you have you must have some disadvantages as well for outsourcing, and these are some of them. And please let me know if you find any additional disadvantage. Please let me know, and we can discuss on that as well, although I'm sure there are. Increased dependence on supplier, loss of knowledge and know-how. I think you should be agreeing with all these points, isn't it? Higher cost. Yes. Yeah, yes. Because, and that's why I said, when he asked me questions, you can think it in a different way, isn't it? So there is a very good case study here, which is saying that even the higher cost is there, means for the company, company is bearing higher cost in terms of having having its employees, the CIO or the chief executive officer is knowing that, I'm investing more into the internal employees in terms of wages, paying them, investment into resources, but still I don't want to outsource it. So the company understands it. Despite all that, the company doesn't want to outsource. So this is higher cost, and that is disadvantage. And there is a very good case study about it. And the case study indicates that, yes. Yeah, it's a very short one, just go through very quickly. He's saying the manager of the Dutch automobile leasing company has seen his company decide against outsourcing. It's saying when our board of directors considered outsourcing the IT department of 8 full-time equivalents, like full-time employees, 8 full-time employees, 2 potential suppliers were invited for a tender for outsourcing. Both looked into the situation and drew the conclusion that outsourcing was well possible. Meanwhile, these investigations caused much emotion among the department's staff, who had for years worked hard and contributed loyally to their company. So, and then he submitted a report. The manager submitted a report to the board of directors and his boss saying that, you see, you have recruited these people from last 10-15 years. You have, over the years, they have gained confidence, they have learned new skills. All the customers are very much satisfied with the kind of work that we are doing. Despite all that, just for the little bit benefits in terms of cost, you are outsourcing it. It is not feasible. And then the company decided later on that, yes, let little bit more cost go into this, but we are not going, because that's a matter of customer loyalty, customer satisfactions, expectation, and if the customers are more than satisfied, no matter, even though you are getting better service, I'm not going to disturb it. Let all the employees be the part of the IT department. Let them work, because we are going very well. So even if I'm investing a little bit more, I'm not intending to outsource a particular business process or the function. So you see, the same argument you can mold a little bit into different direction to make it work against the IT outsourcing. So
I want to confirm one thing.
Yeah.
If you are outsourcing IT services, is it more costly than to own the service, or is it less costly than to own the service?
It is, when you are outsourcing, in most of the cases, it is less costly because of all the reasons that we have discussed, isn't it? But in this case, like in this, because of such exceptional cases, we are calling it as higher cost. Even though the company is investing more, it doesn't care, because the current setup has been created over the years in a way that all the customers are happy. So even higher cost is fine for the company. Just for the cost, the company is not. Now, after the managers writing to the board of directors, the company has decided, the board of directors has decided that, okay, even if we are investing more, we are not going to outsource it, even if it is a viable and feasible solution. Yes?
Is there an option of leaving the services temporarily?
Yes, yeah, that could be a temporary solution. But again, you have to see the pros and cons of the kind of quality of service that you are getting by leasing it, and whether this is, it's not only a matter of creating and developing the talent pool and maintaining the quality, but it is also a matter of the employee's future. Because if I have invested my 20 years of my life in a company, and I'm probably in a group, as a group we think that we are the best probably group which can provide such services, and all of a sudden if you have taken my job, do you think that again, how much time would be taken for me to get trained into the other functions and processes of the company and again deliver in the same pace? So you can experiment with the leasing and whatever other possible ways you can as a company, but this is all related not only to the cost but also to the emotions of the employees, and that's why even if it is higher cost you can go ahead with, but you can experiment all different possible ways. Somebody was talking about risks and security and privacy, so that's there because you are outsourcing. That is, again, subject to the confidentiality risk. and difficulty. This is the most difficult job, at least because you need to know the nitty-gritties of all the functions and processes you work, and whether your potential service providers are exactly the one which you want your services to be performed. If not, then you are going to suffer in the long run, and that's what could go against the IT outsourcing. So these two terminologies, business processes and offshore outsourcing, which we are going to talk at length in the upcoming deliberations. And the final concept is regarding shared services centers. Have you heard of shared service centers? What is this? So a shared service center is basically a part of the organization. It's not an independent entity, which actually could consider to be as initial point of outsourcing. So shared service centers are organizational units that centrally execute services shared by recipients, division, and business units. The services delivered are generally standard, process-driven, transactional activities which support the company's primary process. Accounting services and e-procurement exchanges are examples of such services. The difference between outsourcing is that shared service centers remain part of recipient's organization. Yet, setting up a shared service center is a first step towards independence and thus possibly to outsourcing. So you are not basically outsourcing. It is a part or a subsidiary of your organization which performs the function that you do. And that subsidiary is not necessarily to be within the premises. It could be well spread across different parts of the world. But wherever they are, they perform for you, they work for you, and they are very much the part of your organization. St. Elizabeth Arden International, a skincare, cosmetics, and perfume company that is currently part of Unilever, was one of the first company to set up a shared service center in mid-1990s in Geneva. From here, customer services as well as marketing, order processing, finance, treasury, supply chain, information services were provided for all 12 national divisions. So they had 12 different national divisions and they provided all these different services to them. So this is what we wanted to discuss today about, and as a part of basic concepts of outsourcing and IT outsourcing. We will take up the next topic tomorrow, probably the business process outsourcing. And I want you to take a quick break, and then we will do the tutorial, the case study, which I will make you available in the meantime. Okay? Is that okay? Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.